Raven, and I'm Tara Megan, and we're going to be talking about the sacred art of Tantric orgasm for women. This is a beautiful topic that I don't think gets talked enough about. We certainly don't have a very good education system when it comes to sex and lovemaking, let alone orgasm, and then let alone tantric orgasm. So I'm really happy that we can be, sharing around this topic with you on this live. And ironically, we're talking about something that brings such pleasure to the body and to our being, which is orgasmic energy and orgasm. And yet a lot of women, myself included, pre-tantra, it's a topic that can bring a lot of contraction and fear and self-judgment, because we just don't know what's possible if we haven't been shared that through our parents, through our education system. So really happy to jump into that today. Yeah.
Do you want to share a bit about that journey, Tara, of what this was like and your association with pleasure and orgasm before Tantra and after Tantra?
Yeah, I mean, I was very, I would say, just into the robotics of muggle lovemaking and sex, always with my partner who I loved, but it was very limited. From what I experience now, I look back and was like, wow, it was like such a tiny percentage of the experience that's possible. And it was obviously Tantra that really opened up new pathways for me in my own body and connecting with a partner. And I think the biggest shift initially was actually your 8-week sacred sexuality course, which was so challenging for me. Came with a daily practice for 8 weeks of self-pleasure that there was a lot of pain and freeze and different levels of trauma in my body that connecting with myself every day I had to be with. And it's what actually enabled me to be with those parts of myself that I would just kind of disassociate from during sex, to actually start that healing journey with them. And it wasn't till later within that 8-week period that I started to actually feel pleasure through my body by being really patient with myself and persistent with that practice. So yeah, a big part has been finding out what I liked, how I like to be touched, that I didn't even know was a thing to explore in myself. And now I look back and it's like, well, it's logical, but again, I didn't know any other way. And that enabled me to then speak up with my beloved in the bedroom and to direct the energy to what I liked and ask for what I needed, and to speak up if I felt a contraction coming up to do with past sexual experiences. So it was a beautiful healing journey that there's still layers to that I'm finding in my being. So that was kind of the one big part. And I think the other big part for me has been to actually be with a partner who there's full sexual compatibility with, and the more mysticism and energetic approach to lovemaking is very alive in me and had been missing in some previous partners. And so I'm noticing now in my relationship with my partner where that's at the forefront, and that's very much his sexual imprint as well, that the places that we can go to together, because there's a similarity in what we desire, what we love, what turns us on. And there's a heart connection where I just feel so safe. And that's the other piece, is just feeling so safe and loved and chosen, that then all the layers can come up, both the contractions but also the expansions, and the presence to orgasmic energy, the opening and allowing to orgasmic experiences that I haven't experienced to this degree that is reflective of that unique connection with my partner, or compatible connection with my partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. So to kind of summarize for people, what you're saying is the two biggest things that made a difference to you was connecting with your own sexuality, feeling into the blocks that you had from past traumas, and supporting yourself to eliminate some of those blocks by being with them and releasing them through the Practice in Sacred Sexuality 8-week course, which we've put a link in, or we will put a link in with a 50% off. Please, if you have had a history of sexual abuse or being intruded on or opening your body before you're ready, which most of us have had some form of that as women, then depending on the degree of that, you will need to dive deeper than this live. And even everything we're talking about, the more embodiment is always key. Change doesn't happen through the mind alone. We need to undergo practices to open our bodies to new experiences. So Sacred Sexuality 8-week online course, I wrote and designed and created specifically to support the release of blocks in the body that stop us from being able to fully open and expand into deeper states of pleasure. And as Tara said, self-pleasure is a big key to that, and other things that I'm going to talk about. And yeah, I love that. It's like sexual compatibility is so important, because if someone's really into kink and domination and you're not, you're into mysticism and subtlety and energy and softness, that's incompatible, right? So that's a deeper inquiry. So yeah, thanks for sharing, Tara. So I want to share a bit about my own journey. So before Tantra, I think I was where most people are at, where sexuality is approached from a place of trying to get the orgasm and trying to do things that please your partner, and you end up kind of doing the same thing. I knew what turned my husband on. He knew what turned me on. He would push the right buttons. I would push the right buttons. It would kind of look and feel relatively the same without that much divergence each time. I've always loved sex. It was beautiful and amazing, but yeah, there would just be one explosive orgasm from both of us, and then we would go to sleep. The lights were usually out. And yeah, that was beautiful. And then I really didn't think I could be more orgasmic, because I did feel a lot of pleasure. And I've also always ejaculated. So that was like, kind of waterfall. And I felt really lucky, because a lot of my friends couldn't orgasm. But then when I discovered Tantra, and when I had my first tantric lover, whoa, everything really just completely changed. And there are so many things that are different, so many. So I'm going to try to support you all into what changed things for me, and what I know from working with a lot of clients and from learning a lot about this. So probably the first thing I'll say that makes the biggest difference between ordinary lovemaking that's more educated from pornography or from religion that's coded in shame, that is the pornography approach is that goal orientation. It's like, okay, and it's very genital focused, right? So actually a woman's body, and the shame, or if you've been very religious and there's a lot of shame around sexuality, part of your expansion into more orgasmic energy will be releasing that shame, which again requires deeper practices. And the Living Tantra retreat in Costa Rica in December, if you can make it to that, is really going to support that, because you're in a field with other people where you're coming into practices. And Tara's Fundamentals of Tantra this weekend in Bali. You're coming into practices that are celebrating sexuality, that are celebrating the things I'm going to talk to about here, and give you a different framework. So the biggest thing that made the biggest difference was taking the focus off genital touch, off penetration, off a goal, and into a much more fluid way of being with sexual energy. So that's very linear. It's very masculine, right? And there's a lot of pressure in women. It's like, oh, am I getting wet? I need to open for him. You can kind of feel that the man is just doing things to you a lot of the time so that you will open, which creates even more pressure. And sure, it all works out sometimes for some of us, and you get to have sex and maybe an explosive orgasm if you're lucky, or maybe you ejaculate as well. But energy is not really moving through the entire body, and the body hasn't necessarily been worshipped. So when I had my first tantric lover, and literally we were never making love until I was begging for it. Oh my God, the amount of pleasure that was suddenly available to me was fucking extraordinary. And it's actually what made me, first of all, just go, everybody needs to know this. So actually what I've learned since then is that as women, we need a minimum of 20 minutes for the body to warm up. So 20 to 40 minutes of foreplay. And what does that even mean? Does that mean that, someone's like going really hard on your clit, or, like touching your breasts and trying to get everything going? No, it means that there is a full worship of full body. And, my partner pre-Tantra was always very sensual and beautiful. But when I actually started experiencing this, like, just slow touch starting from my head and my hair and down my neck and my lips and my ears and around my breasts and down the sides of my body and my inner thighs, and he's breathing and I'm breathing, and whenever I'm like thinking or rushing things, he's tapping on my heart and supporting into my heart space, and energy's moving, sound is happening, deep breathing is happening, and my whole body is vibrating, and I'm like, just tingling everywhere, until I literally am begging him to, touch my nipples and touch my yoni. That's like, this is the ultimate experience. And this is what I've learned from not only my own experience, but working with couples, that this is the game changer. Approaching sexuality not from goal orientation or from a masculine linear perspective, but from a much more circular whole body experience. Because as women, our sexual center is not where our power is. It's not where it is for a man. Everyone knows you can just touch his cock and he's ready to go, most men. And it's because men work from the inside out. You start to stimulate their cock, their heart starts to open. And if they know principles of Tantra, they can breathe. And their key into being more orgasmic beyond just a genital orgasm is to circulate the energy through the body from the cock. Whereas for a woman, it's to circulate energy from all of the outer parts of us. Our skin is actually our most sensitive sexual organ. So we need to be touched everywhere. And we have thousands of nerve endings from our clitoris and from our nipples. But if men go straight to the nipples and straight to the clit, which is women's biggest complaint, then we're not going to experience anywhere near the amount of ecstasy. And it's confusing for men because, because their sex center is where their power is and where majority of the ecstasy is going to come from. They have an assumption, whether they know it or not, that that's the same for us. So this is really, really important. And it's kind of like Tantra brings meditation into sexuality. And that doesn't mean that it's not alive and hot and sexy and wild sometimes, absolutely. But what it means is that presence, awareness of sensation, is at the core. So that when a tantric lover, which has been all of my lovers since Tantra, is connecting with me, I feel him connecting with my whole body, with my heart. There's a teasing, there's a warming up. And by the time he enters me, I'm just like, like a
Mm.
fountain just ready to overflow. And at the beginning, so much stuff came up in that, so much trauma of my sexual abuse, of times when I had been entered too quickly, not my husband's fault, but just because I wasn't attuned to my own body. And so the more I started to self-pleasure as a practice, and utilizing self-pleasure not just to stimulate my clit to get a quick orgasm, but to touch my whole body and to feel what it is that I love, what I don't love, any fantasies that I had, just really getting to know myself, because healthy sexuality and being orgasmic is all about how connected are you to your own sexuality, how connected are you to your own pleasure and desire. And it's also about having that compatible partner, having a tantric lover who is aware of how the body works, because the female body and the male body is so different. So, I would suggest to you that if you're wanting tantric lovemaking, which is the most natural for all women, that you get clear if the man that you're with is tantric.
Mm.
For me, that's a no-brainer. If he's not tantric, I'm not going to go there. And you can tell. Or is he open to that? Is he open to learning about that? And it takes time, and you've got to be patient with men. Like, if you can imagine, we know how a woman's body works. So when we're with a woman, we're touching them. If you've ever been with a woman, it's naturally a lot more sensual because we're coming from the same assumption, unless your sexual energy is very masculine, which most women, it's feminine. And so we're naturally attuned and in tune with what we desire. But imagine, like, if you were with a woman and you just went straight for her yoni. Like, it just wouldn't feel right? Because we know what that would be like, but men don't know what that would be like.
Mm-hmm.
If we go down on them or we start touching their cock, they're going to fucking love it. They've never actually experienced the intensity of, like, oh, wow. Every woman knows that if you go straight to the clit or straight to the nipples, it's just too much. It doesn't even feel good. So it's about being understanding and patient with that. It's about knowing that actually, as a woman, it's your heart that creates turn on. So another knowing that, when I got into Tantra, I'm like, oh, right, if my heart's not open, I'm not fully open sexually. That was also a game changer. And it really made me aware of, like, even just comparing my first boyfriend to my husband was always so loving, so unconditional, so attuned, and very romantic, especially at the beginning of our relationship. So I was always turned on and really ready for him, right? Because my heart was being nurtured. He absolutely adored me and was fully committed to me. And then it started to make sense why my first boyfriend, who was like the typical bad boy, kind of smoking pot, surfing, priorities with the boys, and, did the right things to make me feel good. But I wasn't anywhere near as open with him because my heart didn't feel safe. So feeling safe in the heart, feeling open in the heart. And actually, when you look at studies of adultery, men get a really hard time for cheating, but in longer term relationships, women actually veer away and look elsewhere even more than men. And that's because they're satisfied sexually no matter what's going on, because they don't have as many prerequisites, unless, they're really connected with their feminine energy and have explored Tantra. Whereas women, because we are naturally tantric, we start to lose interest because our heart needs to be open. And one of the biggest things that opens a woman's heart is romance. One of the biggest things men stop doing as a relationship progresses is being romantic. And we need novelty and we need excitement. So there's this interesting dichotomy happening where we want safety. We want to feel fully chosen, but actually we need spontaneity, romance, and distance to create that sexual urge. Now, when I first learned this from Esther Perel, who's fucking amazing. If you've never looked at her work and you're married, then read the book. I think it's called Married in Captivity, something like that. Just look up Esther Perel. It changed my life. And what she talks about is that you actually need distance in a relationship and romance for the novelty of the sexual flame to stay alive, especially for a woman. And then a lot of adultery is the result of that flame no longer being kindled.
Uh-huh.
And what I took from that initially was that meant a lot of physical distance. And I spent 10 years in relationships with shamans where there was so much physical distance, so much sexual charge. And I used to always justify all the distance by going, oh, well, you know, Esther Perel says this is good for sexual energy. I'd rather have the sexuality. I knew I was sacrificing a bit on the safety. And then I just like couldn't deal with that anymore. And I want the safety and I want the chemistry. So I'm just going to make time to create that distance. So when I got together with Aaron, you know, there was that distance, but also such beautiful safety and fully choosing. But then we were stuck together during COVID. And then what I started to experience was this new level of distance that I'd never explored before, where Aaron could stay with me all the time, physically and emotionally, but also sovereign and autonomous in his own being. Even when we were together, there was a lot of distance, and same with my current partner. So yes, it's good sometimes to have the physical distance. And if when I was in Bali for 3 weeks and Tisa and I reconnected in Bahrain, for sure the sex was even fucking more amazing, and our bodies were just like writhing and we're making love like 3 times a day. So that's going to heighten it. But what I realized is, wow, we can have togetherness and distance. And even though Matisse and I spend so much time together and live in the same house, often he's doing his thing and I'm doing mine. And my attunement is here, first and foremost and primarily, and so is his. So Tantric relational dynamic teachings, which you'll find in our online course, Relationship Tantra, really support this process of inner union and sacred union, which keeps the charge alive. And I also want to say here, there's a lot of tantric men who are extraordinary lovers, but the only time you feel completely connected to them is when you're alone with them and when there is that sexual energy and flow and enchantment of the tantric lover.
True.
So always make sure that, you know, if you do have a tantric lover, don't make the same mistake that I did. Ensure that there's a deep safety of the heart, or you're going to end up re-traumatizing yourself or freshly traumatizing yourself, because you're going to feel this intensity of love and passion and togetherness, but then you're going to feel the contrast of that when their avoidance or their failure to want to commit and tendency towards freedom. I'm not saying this is all tantric lovers. There's definitely something I noticed in a lot of them, is creating this feeling of abandonment inside you. And I was under the impression that I had to keep working on that abandonment. But then I realized, of course, I'm going to fucking feel abandoned. We're opening fully into this tantric coitus of lovemaking that lasts hours, that's so orgasmic and amazing and connected. And then I'm separated from that. And it was just creating so much confusion in my body. So it's important to feel safe. It's important to feel fully chosen. It's also important to have novelty and romance and intentional distance. It doesn't always have to be physical, that emotional, energetic distance that I'm talking about. And as you can see, I'm very passionate about this topic and I have so much to say about it. What I would love for you all to commit to yourself, if you're serious about becoming more orgasmic as a woman. And tantric orgasm does not refer to just a clitoral orgasm. That can be great if you're not just stressing and so focused on that, or tensing up and not actually enjoying the journey of lovemaking, which is what often happens when the goal is clitoral orgasm, and that's all we know. It's a space of feeling your heart, of engaging with breath, sound, movement, energy, of channeling energy from your heart into your partner's, of receiving his cock fully as the lingam in tantric terminology, or wand of light that it is, and circulating that energy and being very responsive in the body. So, you know, a lot of women, the reason they can't feel pleasure in the bedroom is because they're not feeling pleasure out of the bedroom, right? Unless you have a tantric lover, you're actually in your head when you're making love. So tantric lovemaking can bring you into that space, but if you're not naturally wired that way, you're probably going to be much more likely to go for that tantric lover that you can't do life with, but you're so addicted to the high of the pleasure that you can't cultivate within yourself. And that's a powerless place to be in. And again, I've been there. So it's really important that outside of the bedroom, you're present to sensation, because that's what tantric lovemaking is. You're meditating. You're doing your process to eliminate trauma out of the body. You're self-pleasuring and discovering what you love and enjoy, so that by the time you get to the bedroom, you're not just suddenly having to, okay, I'm present, I can feel into sensation, I'm not just thinking a million things and lying here while he gets his job done, right? You're actually fully in it, and you can inspire a man who maybe isn't as tantric to be even more through the energy of your own being, and you have initiatory powers. And he's going to be more likely to explore Tantra when he can feel that alive inside of you, and you're not depending on him to bring it to you. So when I say 20 to 40 minutes of foreplay, I'm not saying you just lie there while the man brings you into an open state. You're not passive in that. Your body is very responsive, right? You're breathing, you're feeling. Otherwise, you're not going to open if you're just in your head, because you're not even feeling what's happening or receptive to it. And I had huge challenges with this. Still, my partner has to remind me, you can just receive, because actually men get a lot of pleasure out of our pleasure. If we're just lying there, they're not going to get pleasure out of it. But if we're responding, they love it. And if we're stimulating them too much in that foreplay time, then it's going to be harder for them to last. Whereas if they're stimulating us, they've still got that beautiful turn on happening. They're feeling the effect of their touch on us. They're feeling our body opening. They're getting excited the more that they're getting closer to being able to penetrate us. And it's this beautiful erotic meditation and dance of two beings coming together and really building the energy. It's kind of like, you know, if you were in a forest and you just had a certain amount of firewood, right? And it had to last you the whole night. And the difference between your experience, if you put all the wood straight away and got that blue and red flame going and you were really hot and warm for say an hour, versus you just put the wood on slowly and maybe there's the blue, just the blue flame with a bit of red, but you're savoring it and it's going to last a lot longer. And you're feeling, you know, you're relishing in the experience. It's like when you come together with someone, do you want to put all the wood on the fire at once? Light that big fire only for it to extinguish quickly and leave you feeling cold and dissatisfied usually? Or do you want to really let that fire build so that your body is like savoring the experience? You want to savor the experience. And in meditation, the key to meditation is, like, if you find yourself thinking, chasing thoughts or resisting thoughts, you need to come back to the breath, connect the vibration of the breath to the body, connect in with sensation, connect with presence, and then you're going to feel more and more alive. And you just need to keep doing that until you get used to it and let that energy build until, yeah, you're begging for it. And the orgasmic experience is an experience. It's not an isolated event. So he's entering you and you're orgasmic almost straight away. There may not be an explosive orgasm, but you're breathing that energy through your body. You're connecting with him from your heart, and it's enlivening everything. And I started saying earlier, I don't think I finished, that there's thousands of nerve endings from the clit and from the nipples leading to other places in the body, and they're the other places that you want to go to in the foreplay when you're self-pleasuring. So rather than these major erogenous zones of the nipples and the clit, turning you on with direct stimulation. Actually, they turn you on a lot more when you work from the outside and connect with all these other erogenous zones that most people don't know about, which is the head and massage and skin being such a sensitive organ. It is being touched in the face. It is being touched at the neck, being touched at the heart, down the sides of the body, around the breasts instead of straight in, the womb, the belly, the inner thighs, all of these, the feet, all of these areas are also erogenous zones. So that's what wants to be touched. And oil, women love oil. Like, you ask women, whenever I say to women, what's the number one thing that turns you on? If they've actually been on a journey of exploring this, they will say massage. They will say, when my body's being massaged, when my body's being touched with oil, because that sensation, that warming up, that connection, that worshipful devotion that we're feeling from a man really, really opens the rest of our body. So I haven't already told your man that the skin is the most sensitive sex organ, please do so. If you don't know that, become aware of it. So many women think that something's wrong with them because it takes them a while to get wet or to feel fully open. There's nothing fucking wrong with you. It's just that pornography and mainstream education and religion teaches shame. You don't ever see anyone in porn like worshipping a woman's body. It's like bang, bang, straight to genitals, and then she's just suddenly open and ejaculating all over the place. It's fucking bullshit. It's not real. That's not how a woman's body is wired. And, you know, orgasmic energy is a healing modality when it's contacted in the way I'm describing, and it pushes trauma out of the body. So you also have to be willing to be vulnerable and to be in spaces of vulnerability. And I've had the most incredible lovemaking and moments of deep tears and, you know, things coming up for me, especially when I first got into Tantra. And a lot of that was coming up because when love is very present, anything that's not love in the system comes up to be healed, comes up to be pushed out of the body. And it's a beautiful process. Sexual energy is medicine when it's approached from a tantric perspective.
Amazing. Yeah, and I'm really happy that people are getting to receive this, because there's just so much judgment, like you just said, of there's something wrong with me. No one's talking about this. No one's saying, hey, this is the way, this is our physiology and our energetic beings and how different we are from men. And I really like these two components that I've noticed myself swinging between at times, where one is, it is largely an inner journey with slowing down with ourselves and feeling what we like, and being comfortable to touching those places in ourselves without, if we're going into self-pleasure, it's like, oh, but I got to be stimulating my clit and I got to have an orgasm, otherwise I'm doing it wrong. Like, you know, like pornography filters even into that relationship with ourselves. And that's one part of the journey. And then the other part of the journey is in partnership with our beloved, and that really, like you were saying, slowing it down and sensitizing the whole body and going on a journey that isn't goal oriented. So I'd love if we could just touch on that part and the communication with a partner, maybe if this is new, of how to open that conversation, how to explore that through the body and through our naturalness, and to actually bring that into the partnership without doing what I notice can sometimes happen is it being kind of like a demand, like I need this, I need that. Being connected to our bodies and connected to our pleasure.
So where I'm at the moment in my support of people through this is actually more of where I'm shifting to in my own life, which is actually not needing to control the situation or talk about it, but being in the naturalness of what happens when you're attuned to that. So even though all of my partners have been tantric, they haven't all been as tantric as I need them to be. They haven't all been as mystical as my desires inform me and my body informs me. Now, I could say, have a conversation where I say, I need this, and say it in the perfect, loving way. But to me, that has nothing on just being in your own moment-to-moment experience and honoring it and being in the naturalness of expression. So I'll give you an example. So just say I'm with Matisse and, you know, he's feeling a little bit wild and primal and he's particularly turned on and maybe his energy just comes in straight away, right? And it's a little bit much. I'll just be like, can you slow down and smile? And it's like just in that moment. And then, you know, we're kissing and he's slowing down and I can feel his breath. And then I can feel him going to my yoni too quickly. So I'm like, can you just touch the rest of my body? Oh, and then I always have oil handy, right? It's like, could you put some oil on my body? So it's not this thing of, it's being combined with your responsiveness of enjoying them. It's natural. And, you know, a lot of Tantra teachers, the way that they approach things like this is before you have sex, speak about your boundaries, speak about your desires, speak about what you need. I'm not into it at all. I think it just kills a bit of the mystery and also takes away from the initiatory energy of the priestess, which through her own embodiment is inspiring a man to meet her where she's at. So that's what I would encourage. I also, to be honest, when I tried to self-pleasure, I couldn't feel what I desired. I was too removed from that. My being was so wired to pleasing and to opening and to making sure that, you know, my partner was getting good sex. I know that sex opens a man's heart. I read my first Tantra book well before the embodiment journey of Tantra. So I was aware of these different poles, this difference between men and women. It's like to open sexually, a woman needs her heart open. For a man's heart to be open, his sex need to be open, and so much conflict revolves around that, you know. So that's a deeper conversation. But because I knew that, I'm like, oh, I better have sex with him, and I still go into that pattern, to be honest, sometimes. So really honoring myself and trying to work out what I desired and what I fantasized about and what I needed was impossible. I was so disconnected. And what really helped me was practices like what you experience at Fundamentals of Tantra, Living Tantra Retreat, Sacred Sexuality online course, where you're actually getting to hear about and practice with someone, which is fucking amazing, right?
Yeah.
What it's like to be touched with attunement, what it's like to see God in the other person, to reach mystical places, to have exercises where you're sitting across from someone and you're circulating energy and touch is coming in slowly and you feel that arousal and you see other people and you're in a room with other people. So there's shared pleasure and it takes the shame out of that. And, you know, on retreats, especially every day, we're eliminating trauma out of the body. We're eliminating stuck energy that helps open us. And then the temple nights where we get to explore with others, we're experiencing tantric massage, which is a huge key to sensitizing the body. And for me, I got so much tantric massage in the earlier years because I was so desensitized. And that really brought me, and I did an amazing erotic meditation 1-week retreat that changed my life. And in all of these retreats I've done, you know, when I first entered Tantra, I dedicated 3 years to just doing as many retreats and supporting as many retreats as possible. My body and my nervous system started to expand in its capacity to be fully present, to be in that pleasure, to actually feel so much more alive than needing that chase to the orgasm that finally releases the stress in one explosion, right? So that really helps. And then for those of you who have already explored this or want to take it much deeper, then our practitioner training is where it's like, okay, this is where it's at. So if you really want to support yourself and others in mastering sex and relationships, and the two go so hand in hand, then our practitioner training, jump on the wait list. That link will be there. That takes it all fucking completely next level. And you're learning and understanding at a conceptual and embodiment level work together in a sacred dance, so that suddenly lovemaking becomes a spiritual practice. And that's where it gets really interesting.
I love that. How do you feel if we jump into some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so the first one is, how exactly do we know what our deepest desires are?
Well, as I say, it's hard to know if you're really desensitized. And you may need help from a practitioner. But what you can also do is just start to touch yourself, start to intentionally connect with pleasure and desire. So it's like, have that intention. I'm going to connect with pleasure and desire. And feel where it is and trust the natural impulses of your body. So maybe all that's available to you is massaging your neck. Maybe all that's available to you is touching your body with some gratitude, or just giving yourself a hug. That's okay. And you just watch the progression. So you don't have to, like, you know, I remember when I first did it and I was around all these fucking wild Tantra people, and it's like, drop into what you desire. And I'm like, I don't fucking know what I desire. I definitely didn't have access to any fantasies. I didn't have any access to really anything. But through my own knowledge of somatic healing and trauma therapy and going slow with the body, I applied those same principles and do when I work with people. And if you need one-on-one work, Tara and I are also here and have a team. It's really about just taking it slowly. It's like, okay, you can't connect with any desire, any pleasure. Let's just take small steps, right? So sometimes I would just massage my head. Sometimes I would just touch my heart, and then I would start crying a little and feeling, because pleasure is feeling. So the more connected you are to feeling, the more connected you are to that Shakti life force energy, the more you're going to be able to connect with pleasure and desire. So I also suggest things like a more somatic style meditation, where you're really observing sensation, you're connecting with your body, and then you're just gently asking your body, like, what do you need? What would you like right now? What do you desire right now? Because so often we associate pleasure and desire with fantasy and strong sexual experiences, but it doesn't have to be that way. And also start connecting with pleasure and desire outside of touch or self-pleasure. Like, what do I need today? What do I desire today? And trust me, it's so easy to become dependent on a tantric lover. It's very addictive if you are not fueling the flame of your own pleasure and desire and openness intentionally yourself. So it's super important.
That's amazing. And for the people, there are two other questions which you've just answered, which is, I feel like I have zero libido. How do I connect with my sexual desire? And I'm 36.
I want to say something about that. So first of all, even just ask yourself what that means. Like, what does it mean to be connected to my libido? Does that mean that I want sex every time my partner wants it? Does that mean I want to have sex every day? What does that actually mean? And I don't even like the word libido because of all the associations that it has to it. Let's use it for argument's sake. If you want to increase your libido, start honoring where your turn on is, right? It's like, what could I be turned on by right now? So you might not feel like having sex, but you might feel like a massage, which you might feel like going for a walk with your beloved. To me, if I'm not making love to my beloved, holding his hand in nature, seeing the way he is with my children, feeling how much he cares about me, him asking me, what do you need? That's what turns me on. So libido is so fucking connected to that more dense, gross realm of sexuality. Not gross like, ooh, gross, just the gross physical, right? And that's not how a woman's libido is wired. It's like, if I haven't had romance for a week with Tees, if you want to talk about communication, that's what I communicate. I start to notice my libido going down. I start to notice I'm not open sexually. And I'll say to him, hey, can you organize something romantic for us? Because that is one of the things that most common with women. There's no woman I ever work with one-on-one who doesn't end up saying, when I connect with her to her with her feminine when she has a low libido. That doesn't say she wants more presence, more romance, or more commitment and feeling fully chosen, feeling safer, adventure, to really be able to open up. You know, if your partner hasn't been present to you all day, there's been no romance in your whole day, there's been no sensual connection, then suddenly you get to bed and he's all turned on and wanting to make love to you, that's not a low libido. That's a natural response of the feminine, which is not fucking open at all.
Yeah, I love that.
So you want to be really aware of that.
Yeah, thank you. I am 36 and never had sexual desire.
So when there's never been sexual desire, it's usually linked in with neglect, abuse, a lot of shame. So I would need to work with you one-on-one for that. You need, if, you know, I do sessions over Zoom, so does Tara, or see a somatic experiencing therapist. So somatic experiencing is a great way if you don't want to fully dive into Tantra yet, but you want to start connecting to your body. I did a lot of trauma healing and somatic experiencing pre-Tantra that helped me to really connect to a slow process, which I've brought into our body of work and our practitioner training, because it can feel a little overwhelming to dive straight into strong tantric practices. And saying that, I didn't even remember my sexual abuse after 7 years of therapy. Within 1 month of diving into Tantra, the memories started coming back when I had a tantric lover. So the activation in Tantra and the embodiment and the full unleashing is very supportive of eliminating trauma.
Thank you. Suggestions for sexual practices which deepen intimacy with a new lover?
I would say giving each other tantric massage, which tantric massage is just allowing sensual energy to move with touch and sensitivity for like an hour, you know, just worshiping everything. And there's no agenda. There's just loving presence. And when your body is met with loving presence, so much healing comes out of that. And to actually use variety in the touch. So a lot of tantrics talk about channeling the elements through your hands, right? So what does water feel like through the hands? You know, that's kind of the classic, more massage touch. What does fire feel like through your hands? That's more like activating and biting and slapping, and not everybody likes that. So you want to explore what touch you like. That beautiful airy touch, which touches just so. And the earthy touch, which is really grounded. A lot of people just get into habitual patterns of touching and being touched. So we want to expand that. Breathing together, just like sitting in yab yum, which is the woman cross-legged over the man's body. And, you know, check out our podcasts that are free. Check out our blogs. There's lots of stuff about all of this. And just bring your bellies together and breathe together. That's actually a sexual practice because it brings you into a parasympathetic, relaxed, surrendered state. And that supports sexual energy more than anything, right? Also, the woman sitting in front of the man and him just embracing her and feeling her heart and feeling the breath. Macrocosmic orbit, where you're circulating energy and actually exploring energy with a partner, where you're just feeling what it's like to receive through your base for women and give from your heart and feel this energy coming in and out, and to do this when you're making love as well. And for the man to consciously receive through his heart and breathe her into his heart and then feel her before each like penetrative thrust, like actually being connected to his heart and moving in. Also speaking about any fantasies and desires, if you have any, that can be a really beautiful practice of getting to know each other better and releasing shame. Let me see. I mean, there's so many, but a lot of them are too advanced. Okay. So so there's the practices with your partner, but if you're actually not connected to your sound, like sound is at the point of orgasm, think about it. Like there's so much pleasure, you can't help making sound, moving the body, even if all you can let out is, it has to happen, right? Whereas pleasure and sound are so connected, and sound also tones the vagus nerve, which relaxes the body. So just have a practice of next time you're connecting sexually or next time you're making love, really focusing on lots of movement, deep breathing and sounding, because they're all portals into deeper relaxation and deeper pleasure.
Amazing. And last question is, because women's bodies get flooded with oxytocin post-orgasm, are they more likely to combine sex and love? And is it better to wait for full commitment before making love to someone?
I would always say yes to that because at the end of the day, what women want is that, you know, if your feminine energy, if your feminine sexual energy is actually really alive and you have a wiring towards feminine energy with your sexuality rather than masculine, which most women do, without that commitment and safety, it's going to rock you, right? Without the consistency of, like, you know, just knowing that that person's got your back, that they've got your heart, that you're doing life together, that you're opening together, that you're growing together. There's like this beautiful natural rhythm that comes with that and then enters the sexual relationship. So a challenge that I give a lot of people, a lot of women when they work with me, I say, stop making love to men who you cannot see yourself now possibly spending the rest of your life with. You know, if you can't open to him now, if you can't feel the possibility of a deep relationship, then you're going to make love, and then you're going to be looking at your phone, and then you're going to be wondering, and has he got other lovers? And there's so much confusion that comes into that, and so much unsafety. So you may tell yourself, oh, I'm okay with a lover, but what is your ultimate reality? And again, my experience of 20 years of working with people is that when you ask women that question, their ultimate reality is to wake up with their beloved every day, feel a deep resonance, feel common values, feel a deep compatibility of the heart, of the animal, of sexuality, feel fully chosen, and experience that beautiful combination of safety, but also romance and passion. So whenever you're settling for less than that, you're telling the universe, I'm okay with this. When you're not settling for that, you're telling the universe, hey, I'm only open to connecting sexually with someone who I'm a full 100% yes to. And that takes time. So don't jump into bed straight away. Let the friendship form. Let the foreplay at the beginning of a relationship be like 3 months. And an extended foreplay that's different to the individualized foreplay before penetration, but thinking of foreplay as friendship, of like, you know, do I really love this person? Not because I'm getting swept up in the sex, not because I'm getting swept up in the romance, but because there is a deep bond that feels so complementary to living a life of fun, ease, and depth. You know, I asked Matisse the other day what his prerequisites are for, like, what's the most important thing to him in relationship. And he said fun, ease, and depth. And I'm like, actually, that's absolutely mine as well, for all relationships, actually. So to know that, to know what you actually want, not settle for less than that, and know that when you open your body, even if at the time you may feel really open and a yes, because there's so much pleasure, you're going to be more likely to be a yes to that if you deprive yourself of pleasure in your life. You're going to just want those crumbs of pleasure, or, you know, that moment of bliss, because you're not getting it anywhere else. So you're not going to be able to really go for the ultimate life if your life outside of being with a man and the excitement of that isn't ecstatic.
Mm-hmm. What a great note to finish on.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing. So there was a lot in this live, a lot of content and a lot of really, really helpful pathways. So please rewatch this anytime you need to. If there's anyone, a girlfriend, a sister, a brother who you think could really benefit, send them the link. And yeah, there's resources that you'll see in the comments for Sacred Sexuality, the online course with a 50% off code. There's Costa Rica coming up in December, which is going to be incredible for in-person real life experience. And then there's the Tantra practitioner training waitlist that will be launching this November. So lots to explore. Check out our podcasts. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you.
I want to just say one thing about the practitioner training. It's like, if you really want to be in the mastery of the modality of Tantra and the modality of orgasmic energy and the modality of sexual energy, it's like the other offerings, it's like for you to feel more pleasure, for you to feel more connected, to explore that with someone, to eliminate the traumas. And the practitioner training also addresses that, but it goes a little deeper and says, actually, what happens in our body when sexual energy is a healing modality? What happens when we can bring that into our existing coaching or practice to enhance the experience of our clients? Because relationship and sexuality is such a core conflict in so many people's lives. So when we're not addressing that, we're not addressing the fundamental issue that lies in a lot of the challenge of this human experience. So if you're wanting to explore that deeper for yourself and also to bring that to others, then jump on the wait list.
Amazing. Thanks, darling. So we'll see you guys same time next week. We'll be back here. Thanks, Raven.
You're welcome. Thanks, Tara.
Bye.